to the next point.
I just think there's a narrative that black men aren't providers. And so that's why I wanted to highlight that moment to you know, it was in you since you were 12. And so it's just another misconception that people have that black men don't support their families. You know, when loved and your mother loved you, she just had a hard time providing because she was sick. And so when it was time to step up to the plate as a young man, you took responsibility as your love for her, you know? And that's just so beautiful. And, you know, I'm sorry for your loss that she passed. But after she passed, how were you able to manifest up until 27 to the real estate mogul that you are now and having like this massive wealth?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I think when she passed, I was lost, you know? I didn't know who I was at that point. I think that my whole identity was wrapped into Philadelphia and being with my mom and traveling different places. And, you know, we used to go up to the mountains up in New Ringo, Pennsylvania. And everywhere I went, I saw my mom. Like you know, so I'm like, I got to get out of here. Like I just, you know. So I learned a lot. Like I think, you know, I had to really, how can I put it? I had to find myself, you know? I went through a lot. I went through a lot. You know, I was engaged and then that didn't work out and there was all these different things going on and someone took money from me and, you know, and it was, you know, I was in legal trouble and there was all of these different things going on and, but you know what? It gave me perspective, moving from that, and I'm glad those things happened because I had, you know, that is literally where I felt like, okay, who are you going to be? You have to make a decision. Either you're going to become this or you're going to become that. You know?
What's this? What's that?
Either you're going to, you know, live a life of retaliating against people who have hurt you, right? Who have wronged you, or you're going to move past that and, you know, and do something with yourself, you know? And so from that point on, I made a decision. I was like, you know what? I'm done. What happened has happened. I'm not proud of what happened. I'm not proud of my response to it. But you know what? I'm going to do something. So I was in North Carolina at the time, lived in North Carolina. Came back to Philadelphia. I started a mortgage company. And it was Aspen Home Loans. I was working with Aspen Home Loans. So I partnered with a company, Aspen Home Loans. We're licensed in, 30 states. So we were doing the mortgage business, and we're doing really well. We had an office in Bala Cynwyd and had a full staff. And I learned a lot through that business. It was great. That's when I actually was connecting with a lot of real estate investors, right? So, you know, as I'm making my $2,000 or $5,000 on a deal, I'm seeing they're making $150,000. And, you know, I'm like, I need to be on the other side of this. And it's from that's when I started to jump into real estate. And it was from an issue with one client to another, did something that he didn't like, and I say, hey, well, if he's not going to buy it, I'll buy it. And that was my first real estate deal I made over $40,000 on. And from then on, I had a system. 10% I would take for myself, I would blow it on whatever, and the rest would go into the business. So I learned a lot. It wasn't perfect. I took on a partner years later. And this is during, I think, right before 2006. Remember, there's a whole real estate boom. It was a boom, but then it was a bomb, right? So, you know, we had all these properties, and we had to let them go. We were trying to get rid of all of them because of what happened with real estate. Nobody was buying at that time. So after that, I really had to reinvent myself. A lot of people at that time were like, what are you going to do now? You know, how are you going to move forward? And I got into, what was I doing after that? what was I doing? What was I doing right after that? I think we got into, I was into the travel industry. Yeah. So I got into the travel industry through Florida. I connected with some old friends who I knew, and someone called me and say, "Hey, do you operate with merchant accounts? Have you ever had one?" I'm like, "What is that?" So there was a company out of Florida. It was a travel company, and they said, "Yeah, we're doing all this business. We need, we need somebody with a merchant account." I'm like, "What is a merchant account?" He said, "Oh, well, you process, credit cards or whatever." But he said, "We process so much that we need another merchant account because you can only process so much per month." I'm like, is this a scam? Like, I don't really know what that means. I said, "Listen, let me come down and let's figure some things out." And so I started to understand, like, oh, okay. So they're selling travel packages to people. Do you ever get those phone calls where people are like, "Hey, you can go to Cabo for $300 or whatever." So these are the people who are calling you, right? But these are real trips, but you have to go on a presentation, right? As long as you go on a presentation, you just only pay $300. You stay for 5 days and 4 nights. And so this is what they were selling. In the merchant world, that is a high-risk business. So when someone is doing a lot of volume, what happens is they are at high risk for what they call chargebacks. Chargebacks is, we know what a chargeback is, right? So
no, we don't. I don't know what a chargeback is.
You don't know? Okay, so
yeah.
I learned. So when you don't like a product, you can call your credit card company, or someone won't give you a refund, right? Mm-hmm. You can say, "Hey, I sent the product back. They won't give me a refund. Can you return the money?" The credit card company will actually return the money back to you. So that's what chargebacks are. So you had in this travel company a lot of unhappy people charging the chargebacks. Like, "Oh, I didn't like it," or "I didn't like the package." So it's a big problem. The actual issue they were having is their merchant accounts kept getting shut down, which means the money that they've collected is being held, right? And so this is the reason why they were reaching out to me, like, "Hey, can you open a merchant account?" So after I studied the business for a couple months, I'm like, this is really high risk. I can only do this if I have control of the company. Now, I didn't know what I was doing. Honestly, I literally was just figuring it out as I was going. And I said, "Look, I need 51% of the company." And my thinking behind it was, look, like, they're not really doing clean business. They're selling people. We need to change the process in how things operate here. And so what I did is I came up with a process where, you make a sale. There was a different department who would actually verify if you said yes, if you understood what you were buying, and if you didn't, then it wasn't a sale. So the former owner, the partner at the time, we had a big blow up because his sales were going way, way down. But these were bona fide sales. And I said, "We have no chargebacks," right? So if we're bringing in $30,000 a month, but you have $8,000 worth of chargebacks, I mean, like, what are we making? Like, doesn't make sense. It's a lot of work. We paid for hours, we paid for, equipment, we paid for electricity, we paid for, like, we're working backwards here. "No, that's not how the business works." I said, "You know what? I'm going to buy you out." That was the reason why.
You don't like to argue.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
So at that time, at 51%, I paid him out his 49%. And he laughed at me, says, "You're going to fail. You don't know what the hell you're doing." And I say, "Yeah, that might be true, but we'll figure it out." I had 4 people. They had a staff when I went there of 27 people. There were 4 people who literally were telling me what was really going on. I'm like, "Jesse, this is what's going on. This is why this happens. They push deals through." And so these are the 4 people that I actually kept. We let everybody go. So we actually changed the entire environment. We started the company. We restarted the company. First month we made, I don't even think it was $5,000. Second month we may have made $8,000. but it was clean business. We got to keep the money, nobody charged back, people understood. And my focus was, I said, guys, listen, we just stay the course. If we just do clean business, I'm telling you, it's going to work. At the end of that year, we were making over $160,000 a month. Clean business.
Wow.
You see? So now banks are loving me. They're like, man, like there's a lot of guys, man, and it's like, man, how do you do it? Like your chargeback ratio is less than 1%. I said, look, we make sure they qualify. If they don't want it, we don't push it, and that's it. And, I just keep buying leads, and I keep telling, I tell the staff, like, look, guys, there are yeses out there. I might have to buy 1 million leads to get it, but just keep turning the pot, and you'll be fine, So from that point on, that really was a good springboard. After doing that for about 4 years, I wasn't quite a millionaire yet. I don't even like to say that. I wasn't quite that wealthy yet.
Because you were a millionaire because your business is worth millions.
I don't like using that
equity.
word. I know, but I hate saying that.
Why?
I'm never comfortable saying that. I'm never comfortable saying that. I don't know why.
Interesting.
My mother always say, like never, don't. My mother was very low key. My grandfather was actually pretty wealthy.
You don't know. When I get my millions, y'all, I'm
I
popping
can't.
bottles.
I don't. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, my grandfather was very wealthy, but nobody knew it until he died. They were like, oh, wow. You know what I mean? So anyway, that was really the springboard of that really pushed me forward when doing a lot of different things. Now I actually have cash.
Liquid.
I was very, very liquid. Made more investments.
Did you sell the travel business?
Yes, I sold it. It started to fade out. I sold it to someone. He got a good deal on it. I said, good luck. And it closed down because I knew that the travel industry at that time I could see the writing on the wall. And I'm like, it's time to get out. I don't want to keep going and have to pay staff and paying for a building and all of that. Let me just, let me get out of it now. So, I had a good 5 year run with it. And try some other travel stuff. Didn't really like it too much. And just ceased doing that. So then I got back into real estate.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm listening to your journey.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing so many different pivots.
Yeah.
And I see the North Star being, you said, clean business, staying true to your character, honesty, and just being someone that you're proud of. But even in that, right, you said you lost money first, and most people, when they get to that point and you're like, what, I just have this feeling if we keep going in this direction, it's gonna hit. Yeah. And so for a lot of the listeners out there who are watching us right now and who are experiencing their lows and just want to give up and don't feel confident in that, I want to ask you what kept you on that course of believing in yourself that much? Because it almost would seem on the outside looking in a little delusional if you went from 30 to 5, you know what I mean? And you just spent all this money on this business, and you had this owner who's been doing it for years and years telling you, good luck, man.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't know it was going to work. I mean, honestly, I'm like, oh my God, people need to be paid. I have a lot of money out there. People think I'm an idiot. I had to literally self-talk every day.
Give yourself affirmations.
Yeah, literally. The guy said, you don't know what you're doing. Like you're like, and I even had other people in the industry. I would ask questions, and they were literally like, oh yeah, you're the guy that bought that. Yeah, and they knew. Florida's like really small. Like it's people know each other in that industry, and they weren't giving me the right advice. They would give me the wrong advice. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it right. It's not like we're making 0 sales. So let's increase the number of people. Let's keep the leads coming, fresh leads coming, and let's just keep going. So, when it comes to anything that you do in life, you got to believe it. But you can't depend on anybody else believing it for you. You can't. And that's what a lot of times people, they're looking for an affirmation from someone to say, tell me this is going to work. No, they could tell you it's going to work. But no, we don't know. I mean, they don't know. But you have to believe it and keep going. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. It doesn't define you, right? It doesn't define who you are. It doesn't make or break you. It's just like, okay, it didn't work. And then when that business started to go south, sold it, started something else, And so that's what I think through my upbringing, I've learned how to pivot. I've learned how to, okay, let's try this, let's try that. Not afraid to take risk, I've made some really bad investments, I've done it. I've had, I've blown quite a bit of money on making bad investments, but that is the teacher. You will only learn if you make the mistakes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but what grounds you in those periods? You're talking about downsides. Like there's upsides and there's downsides in business and in life.
Yeah.
And I have a friend, and even myself, like. We might be going through a downside, and be in these seasons. But when I'm 29, right? So it's like when I'm doing it in my 20s, I'm like, oh, it's all over. Because I'm not used to it. I went from doing real estate, being on top of my game. Like, I'm just going to keep it all on the table, y'all. I was making 30, 40K a month flipping houses. I flipped 7 houses in a year. I had a partner I was doing it with who was in contracting, my ex at the time, and we were going and rinse and repeat. The pandemic hit, real estate market went down, and then it went crazy up. Right. So we sold at a huge profit, but we couldn't buy back in, And, I mean, we could have, but we didn't feel as confident because we weren't getting the houses for the same prices.
Right.
And so I had to pivot, and I decided, I was like, you know what? This is a time of kind of retraction. I'm going to go after something I love doing, which is creating content and building up my community. But there was no money in that. So imagine, making 30, 40K months in a year to going to subtraction on your bills to subtracting 5, 6K a month. And so now all the money you made, and then on top of that, I had to pay taxes, that I didn't pay my taxes up front because that wasn't, I'm experiencing life for the first time. I'm experiencing business, being an owner for the first time. I owed taxes on the money because we didn't hold the property for a year. So it was like 1031 extra.
Exchange.
It was like, didn't do 1031 exchange, didn't do refinancing. We owed this money. And so on top of that, I was spending money that I owed. And so like pursuing this dream. And, I gotta say, in that process, and I'm still in it now. I'm clear now. I'm clear on my vision. I'm clear on my finances, and I've gotten myself back up.
Right.
But in the process of the low, what keeps you grounded?
You know what? There's something in me that just won't give up. Coming from the background that I came up in, making $1.50 an hour, helping my mother, doing different businesses, being in different situations, different scenarios. I just believe all the time that the universe will give me what I need. Some people call it God, some people call it whomever. But I always have seen, someone asked me, my wife actually asked me, she says, did you ever see yourself? I said, I've always felt that this is who I will be. I've saw it all the time. I've envisioned it, I saw it, and I never deviated from that. And I think it's that vision of myself that has kept me going. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
You know what
That's
I
why I
mean?
do affirmations.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm giving people visuals
Yeah.
of like, black man, you already him. You are kingly,
Yes.
right? Wear your
Yes.
crown.
Yes.
See yourself, envision yourself, because
Yes.
how you see yourself is
Yes.
how you are going to manifest the life that you want and who you want to be.
Yes.
And it's more about who you want to be than what you have.
Yes,
and
yes,
there's just
yes,
all these
yes.
lessons in that, and you can get deeper in it.
Because sometimes this is what happens, and we all do it. We all do it to an extent. If we're really honest, we compare ourselves with someone else's quote unquote success. Success, and I want to be clear, it's not always about money. It's not. If we're going to call success money, I know we're talking about money, we're talking about business. If we don't work on success in here, internally, the money will come and it will mean nothing. Okay, I've lived there. I've lived there, so I know what that means, right? So I've been on both sides of the equation where it's like, hey, the money comes, it goes, but if you haven't done that self-work, like, it doesn't mean anything. Because then if you lack purpose in this position, like, what are you good for? Who are you giving back to? What are you giving back to the world? Then it becomes really more of a selfish thing. Like, hey, I'm gonna get, and this money becomes this idol, this god that you worship. And I see this a lot, you know, like, yeah, you know, and particularly in minority communities, this is what happens. They make their first 30,000, they're buying the Benz, right? It's like, man, you just got started. You're not rich. And I think it comes from because we're, you know, many of us, it's like we see that, hey, we haven't had, right? So we get excited. We haven't learned about financial management and all these different things. So much goes into it. But we want to be that guy with the Learjet, right? Who says that, you know, he's a billionaire, who says that he's done all these great things, but he's making really his money off you and buying his course. That's who we want to be like, and we get attracted to that and thinking that's it. Like, if I'm that, I have everything I need. No, you are everything you need. You know?
Wow. It's different. It's different because some people are allowing money to control them and money to puppeteer them.
Yes.
And money to, and you know, when the World Trade Center hit and the economy crashed, you had people taking their lives.
Yeah.
Because they lost their money.
Yeah.
And they had their family. They had
defined
their house.
everything
they had everything
about them.
And they killed themselves. Their life was meaningless to this paper. And money is something you can make all over again, just like how you did.
Yes,
You said, I had a downturn and then I went back.
Yeah.
It didn't define you.
Yeah.
Your downs didn't define you. And we are, like, one thing about life, you are gonna get down.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
But that's the beauty of it, right? If it wasn't for